right, imagine this. You're stripped of your name, your entire identity, and just thrown into a world that's run by violence and really strict racial codes. Now, what if your only survival guide was the playbook you learned as a CIA spy? It sounds like a movie, right? But it's not. Today, we're going to get into the incredible story of John Kiriakou, a former CIA officer who used his spy skills to survive federal prison.
So, how does a CIA officer even begin to survive federal prison? I mean, it's a fascinating question, right? You'd think these two worlds are complete opposites. One's all about covert ops in some foreign country, the other is just being locked up. But, as Kiriakou found out, the skins you need to make it in both, they're shockingly similar.
Think about it. Recruiting spies, finding cover, adapting to a hostile place, that's not just spycraft. Turns out, those are the unwritten rules of the prison yard too. Being able to read people, to manipulate a situation, to build the right alliances, that's the key to survival. It doesn't matter if you're in Langley or, in his case, Loretto Prison. Okay, so how on earth does a decorated counterterrorism chief end up behind bars in the first place? Well, to get that, we've got to look at who this guy actually is. John Kiriakou wasn't some desk jockey. No, he was right at the sharp end of the war on terror. So he joins the CIA back in 1990, works his way up. By 2002, he's leading the team that captures a major al-Qaeda figure, Abu Zubaydah. A big deal. But then comes the moment that changed everything. In 2007, he goes on ABC News, and he becomes the very first CIA officials to publicly confirm that, yes, the agency was using waterboarding. He flat out called it torture. And that one act of whistleblowing, it put him on a direct collision course with the U.S. government. And it all ended with him getting a 30-month prison sentence in 2013.
And this quote from him right before his sentencing really just captures the sheer irony of it all. He points out, hey, I'm the one going to prison for talking about torture, but the people who actually did the torturing, they're all free. The main takeaway here is that in his mind, he was a political prisoner.
So, with that mindset, he walks into the Federal Correctional Institution in Loretto, Pennsylvania. But let me tell you, the reality of what he was walking into, it was an immediate, brutal shock to the system. See, he was supposed to be sent to a minimum security camp, the kind people call Club Fed. But surprise, a so-called mistake landed him in a much, much tougher, higher security place. We're talking double fences, concertina wire, guard vehicles constantly circling. And on the inside, he found a world that was completely, rigidly divided by race. Where you sat, who you ate with, who you even talked to. It was all decided by the color of your skin. And just like that, John Kiriakou, the decorated CIA officer, was gone. He was stripped of his name. He was now Federal Prisoner 79637-083. Just a number. A total erasure of who he used to be. But here's the thing. You can't just erase that kind of training. Kiriakou realized pretty fast that his survival was going to depend on the exact skills the CIA had drilled into him. It was time to start thinking like a spy again.
And this quote from him really nails the connection he made. The CIA is full of aggressive alpha personalities. So is prison. Both places, right, they're these high-stakes environments, totally dominated by aggressive personalities, where power dynamics are absolutely everything. He just had to take his old tradecraft and apply it to a new theater of operations.
So let's look at one of his core principles. Rule number 4 from his old spy manual: adapt to your environment. I mean, this is basic stuff for any operative who gets dropped into a totally foreign culture. And what does that really mean? It means you watch, you listen, and you adjust your own behavior. You learn the local customs, the slang, who's in charge. In prison, that meant figuring out all the unwritten rules, the hierarchies, and basically becoming a chameleon so you don't paint a target on your back. And he put this to work immediately. Even though the prison was totally segregated, Kiriakou had this unique background. He spoke Greek and Arabic, and he used that to build relationships across the racial divides. He actually earned respect from different factions, and that built him a network. And a network is protection. But sometimes just blending in isn't going to cut it. Sometimes you have to go on the offensive. And that's where rule number 7 from the playbook comes in. Use dirty tricks. Now, this is the darker side of the spy game. In the CIA, dirty tricks could be anything from spreading disinformation to psychological operations, basically manipulating a situation to neutralize a threat. It's about fighting fire with fire when just being friendly doesn't work. And Kiriakou used this exact tactic. There was this notoriously violent inmate who started threatening him. But Kiriakou didn't get into a fight. Nope. Instead, he started strategically planting disinformation with other inmates and with the guards, making it seem like this other guy was the real aggressor and a serious danger. The pressure just kept building until the prison authorities had no choice but to transfer the guy out. The threat was completely neutralized, and he never had to throw a single punch. That is a classic intelligence operation right there. But Kiriakou's time behind bars wasn't just about his own survival. It gave him this front-row seat to a system that he saw as completely fundamentally broken. And, the whistleblower in him, he just couldn't keep quiet about it. To really get the scale of this problem, just think about this statistic for a second. The United States has just 5% of the world's population, but we have 25% of the world's prisoners, a quarter of them. Kiriakou was now just one of the millions of people caught up in this massive system. And listen, this system takes a huge toll on everyone involved, not just the inmates. A jaw-dropping 34% of corrections officers suffer from PTSD. To put that in perspective, that is more than double the rate for military veterans coming home from war. That level of stress just creates this incredibly cynical, hostile, and frankly dangerous environment for everybody. And Kiriakou saw the results of this firsthand, especially when it came to medical care. He ended up with permanent damage to his own finger because it kept getting misdiagnosed. But much, much worse than that, he watched an inmate with stage 4 spine cancer get treated with nothing but Tylenol until he died. And these weren't just one-off stories. He saw them as signs of a whole system that was failing. His conclusion was pretty bleak. He said the Bureau of Prisons, the BOP, had what he called a policy of deliberate indifference. Basically, they just ignore prisoners' medical problems and hope that they either just go away on their own or that the prisoner gets released and becomes somebody else's problem. So after 23 months, Kiriakou was released, but his fight was far from over. If anything, his time on the inside had just given him a brand new, urgent mission. And his words when he got out say it all. I can guarantee you that I am unbowed, unbroken, uninstitutionalized, and ready to fight. He didn't come out broken by the system. He came out emboldened. The guy who blew the whistle on the CIA, he now had a new target, the American prison system. He was ready to fight for human rights, for civil liberties, and for serious prison reform. And all of this really leaves us with one big question to think about. Kiriakou's entire journey, from exposing torture to then surviving prison, it all kind of hinges on this. When a system fails, when you see something you think is just deeply wrong, is speaking out a crime, or is it a duty? Is staying silent the same as being complicit? And is speaking up, even if it costs you everything, not just a choice, but a responsibility?